If you're a founder without any sort of Forward BioLabs, you have some experiments that you need to do. And without anything like this, they have to think, well, how am I going to get that done? Here, the day we do orientation, when it's all set up, they walk into a lab that is full of equipment, that is full of people ready to train them, to fix the equipment if it breaks. It makes a huge difference.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Startup Wisconsin podcast, a show where you can learn about Wisconsin's growing tech scene through stories of startups, founders, investors, and the talented people making it all happen. My guest today is Jessica Martin Eckerly, CEO and co-founder of Forward BIOLABS. They provide co-working lab space in a supportive environment for early-stage biotech startups in Madison and have recently expanded into Milwaukee. Jessica spent more than 20 years bringing scientific discoveries from academic labs into the marketplace. The idea for Forward BioLabs started when she was at WiCell, and a collaborator from UW-Madison came asking for extra space to start a company. That company got set up in a small lab, and within a couple of years, they had generated revenue. Then, other people started reaching out with the same question: do you have space for us too? The pilot launched in 2018, and Jessica will tell you, she went through the same process as any founder: fundraising, business plans, talking to potential customers, all while starting her family. And it all started with a napkin scratch, not a $5 million check. The numbers show how far they've come. Over 40 startups supported and more than $360 million raised collectively. In this episode, we talk about why biotech is uniquely hard to bootstrap, what makes Madison's talent pool strong enough to keep companies from leaving for the coast, and their new pilot in Milwaukee as part of Wisconsin's EDA designated biohealth tech hub. All right, folks, let's get into it. So you've spent 20 years, more than 20 years bringing scientific discoveries from academic labs into the marketplace. But what made you decide to co-found Forward BioLabs, and what problem were you trying to solve? Like, what were you seeing in the industry as you were working within that space?
The primary problem we're trying to solve is helping these companies get started. I had been at WiCell, which is a nonprofit, serves the university and stem cell scientists and companies worldwide. But we had a collaborator from the UW-Madison come and say, I'm starting a company. It's a company called Braincell. They're still working hard today. Okay, we're starting a company. Do you have any extra space? And we put them up in a small little lab within WiCell, and that was very instrumental to them in their work. And in a matter of a couple of years, they had revenues from top pharma and they had collaborations in place. But they talked about how this environment, having everything set up, and they could come ask us questions. How do I ship my cells? What do I need to be thinking about for this? This machine is broken. What can I do to fix it? And having all of that support, they just spoke really highly of. And in that same time period, we started hearing from other PIs on campus. I would like to start a company. I'm ready to go. Do you have space for us too? And so that's where this idea started. There's this appetite for help starting companies, really, and this equipped and supported space was something people were asking for. A group of people, including Aaron Oliver, Pam Christensen, Robert Droppy, the co-founder, Lisa Johnson, Bill Murphy, WARF, and several others, we had all kind of been talking about this, and everybody was on board. And what I mean by that is everybody understood that if we were going to make this happen, everybody was going to have to put in. This is structured as a nonprofit, and that's one of the things that makes it really special, not just to the companies here, but to our community.
Yeah. When you started that pilot in 2018 in Madison, what did it take to kind of get all of those organizations, those individuals on board to make this real? I'm sure probably some friction, and obviously a lot of different folks have different incentives or goals that they would like to get out of it that benefits their organization more, et cetera.
Yeah.
But what was that like trying to get it off the ground?
It was busy and it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. What was happening at the time is there were some of these co-working labs on the coast that were really taking root, and they were seeing a lot of success and impact. And in Madison, there had been a couple little efforts, I might try this, or little different flavors. but there hadn't been any dedicated resource. And so when I was invited to take a sabbatical and see if this could move forward, it was basically a napkin, just a napkin scratch. And so I found myself on the same path as what any other startup and founder is doing, and that is fundraising, business plan, talking to potential customers, and then getting that pilot lab open. And it was very fortunate. I'm really grateful to WiCell because we had they worked with us on the pilot lab. That same little lab that BrainCell was in became the pilot lab for Forward BIOLABS wasn't very long, a year maybe, but that allowed us to get some companies in who had been asking, when can we start? That proved out the concept that it was possible to cohabitate, and that helped the fundraising. But the bigger footprint, which is done the second floor from the pilot lab, opened 6 to 8 months later. But I think that journey of starting from scratch, fundraising, getting all the stakeholders on board, which is a very similar experience to all the founders here. And it turns out that I just have appreciated that experience because I know where they're at and they know that I know where they've been at. This didn't start with $5 million to go build it. It started with recognizing the need, starting to serve those customers immediately, and then helping to bring that help to the fundraising.
Yeah. I want to talk about the unique difficulties that biotech startups specifically have compared to other startups. Obviously in Wisconsin, we have manufacturing startups, we have, software startups, things like that. They can run on coffee and funding and all that kind of stuff and just a computer, but there's so many more facets to dealing with the sciences. So talk about why building something within the life sciences as a company is so hard and expensive. Like, what are the things that they usually have to deal with and figure out as they're going along?
Yeah. So if you're a founder without any sort of Forward BioLabs, you have some experiments that you need to do. They're either de-risking or they're scaling up the manufacturing. There's something that you need to get done. And without anything like this, they have to think, well, how am I going to get that done? I need some space. I need all this equipment. Then I need the supplies and the personnel. And just those things with the space, the equipment, and all of the safety things around. I mean, that's months and hundreds of thousands of dollars at best. Here, but the day we do orientation, when it's all set up, they walk into a lab that is full of equipment, that is full of people ready to train them, to fix the equipment if it breaks. It makes a huge difference. And the reason that it's important in life sciences, almost all these companies have regulatory approvals, and the regulatory approvals require certain tests, certain processes, and that drives the cost of developing these products up. Medicines, devices, diagnostics, but also in ag tech and food tech with the EDA and the EPA, there are some, and clean tech, there are sometimes regulations. So it's exciting when somebody starts in the lab and they are just immediately like, this is so fantastic. So it never ceases to get old. I'll be honest. It's every time it's really wonderful to see them light up with all the stuff they can get done.
That's awesome. So it feels like the barrier to entry is just a lot higher because of like all the nuance, all the regulation, access to equipment. Like you could buy the equipment, but then like you said, like, does someone know how to fix it? Can they repair it? Do they know how to troubleshoot it? There's just, I feel like so many more variables involved.
The other thing is it's simple. Like sometimes you can access a piece of equipment on one part of a campus or with a contract manufacturer or CRO, but the ability to get it all done in one space is also a time saver because there's less to figure out. There's fewer agreements. You do one thing and you're set and you can just go.
Yeah, because I'd imagine too, like if you're dealing with, anything within biology, like, hey, I have my samples here. I got to safely transport this sample now to this other location. Like, does it have to be cooled when I transport it? Like there's all these different things.
All the secondary containment.
Yeah. It's just wild. And, I think just like anything in this world, like, I just think about the logistics of food, like transporting cold food across the country is like a feat in itself. The fact that we have systems in place that do that is just, wild. So just thinking about like, hey, I'm doing something that's never been done before. really unique. I have really unique specimens or samples, and I need to figure out like how to keep this thing safe, contained, and usable as I'm going along through this whole process. And I love that you said like it's simple because it's all in one place versus I got to go to this lab and now I got to drive across town to this one, or I got to drive 2 hours to another one, or fly
Yep.
somewhere to another one. I'm sure that's happened in the
All the
past.
time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was going to say, for everything we provide, inevitably companies have collaborators, they have other contractors they're working for or working with, but the option, and then just it's less so. You don't have to contract everything. So you might have 2 contractors versus 7. Makes a difference.
Yeah. I feel like the theme I'm feeling is like these people, these founders don't have to go through this process alone anymore,
Yes.
which I think is like the hardest part of this whole journey. It's like, hey, I'm
Yes.
doing something. I mean, you might have a co-founder, but like, hey, I'm choosing to do this thing that's never been done before. And I now have people on my side. I have new allies that can help me through this whole process, which is really, really cool. Are
We
there any
hear,
like stories maybe related to that where you feel like, oh, wow, like, this person came to us and they were just struggling. And once they came to us, like it unlocked everything for them. Do you have any examples of that or?
we get founders at different time periods. So like sometimes we'll get a founder that starts with the office when they incorporate and they're grant writing, they're raising money and they add the lab and then they get to work. Others, for various reasons, maybe they started before Forward BioLabs existed and they're working in their independent lab space, but they've got a new project or they have a new manufacturing need. And so we just welcomed one a couple months ago that had different needs than when they began their work outside of
Mm,
Forward BioLabs. And it was fun to hear them say what we did is, as in your words, unlocked new capabilities in a better lab environment for them to do what they needed to do. They needed to do some light manufacturing of some beta product. And so that's fun because they had been struggling with like trying to get it done themselves. And here it's just all here and they got it done very quickly.
yeah. You kind of talked about folks are coming in earlier stages, like grant writing and stuff like that. What is like the best fit, or like in your mind, what is probably the best experience for someone coming in? Hey, I'm going to start up Forward Biolabs. I have this idea, or I'm looking to get funding, or whatever that thing is. Like, do you
Yeah.
feel like, hey, as soon as you know you have a little bit of traction on something, you should just come join us and be a part of what we're doing? Or do they need a certain amount of traction to actually say, hey, I now feel like I need some lab space to start doing stuff? Yeah, what is a good fit? Like, what does a founder fit look like for Forward Biolabs with your team?
A founder fit can look different depending on where they are in their journey. Sometimes we hear from companies and they start the next month in the lab and they're ready to go. Other times we talk with a founder who's thinking about starting a company and they start the company 2 years from when we have a conversation and they join the lab and office a year later. Ultimately, at least for me personally, I had always hoped that Forward BioLabs not just would help companies get started quickly with the lab and the supportive environment, but also that if you're thinking about starting a company, you can have a conversation and know that if I wanted to do this, this will be here and it will make it much easier. Because sometimes the barriers to starting a company are logistical and they're financial, but also it's a mental risk. How big of a hurdle is this going to be to get started? That hurdle has been reduced. And
Agreed.
I just, as a resident in Wisconsin that wants to see our state provide as many opportunities for people as possible, that's something that's important to me personally. And so we're happy to talk with people at wherever they are in their journey. And it varies quite a bit.
Yeah, I'd imagine like, you're probably like super excited for folks that are very, very early on because they just have so many questions, and you can, even though you may not be the best resource for them today, you can at least give them some insight into like who they could talk to right now to help them get to that next
Yep.
phase where they need to go, or just that connection, whatever connection they need. And then, later on and they come back and they're ready to go. Like, yeah, like I feel like that happens a lot where there's a lot of different organizations, whether it's the WEDC or Starting
Yes.
Block or wherever, like, it's like, just come and share where you're at and ask questions. And that's really like the best case scenario, is because the sooner you can learn things or get connected to the right people,
Yes.
the faster you can get over whatever that hurdle is, even if it's a little lower. Hey,
Yep.
why try to like
Yep.
draw the map by yourself when you can kind of get some directions before then,
Yes,
Yeah.
we try not to recreate the wheel in anything. So we are continually sending people out to others to access the other resources because it really does take a village. Like I like to talk about, it's like we're a cog in among many gears in our ecosystem. And so we hear like other entrepreneurial endeavors refer people to us, and we do the same thing because just like you said, there's different resources for people at different time points. And that's what makes our ecosystem great. And I agree with you. I always like, I hear this when we host tours, even from different parts of the world. They're like, people here are very willing to help and really talkative and genuine. Like, you don't need to be in the lab if it's not the right fit for you right now. You do what you need to do, and we're here if and when you need us. So
Yeah. And I think, we all know that we all have our own stories of like whatever door someone goes through, they don't know like that there's other doors to go through to enter into like the ecosystem or find your people or find the service that you need. So I think like all of us being different doors to the ecosystem and allowing us to, hey, you should actually go over there. Like they'll be able to help out even more than I can, et cetera. And that's something that we hope at Startup Wisconsin to figure out is like, how do we become that front door and say, hey, no matter who you are and what you're looking for, we can help you get connected to that thing or that group or that person. I mean, that's the dream, we're trying to figure out as we go. And we can only do as much as we can within the limited constraints we have right now.
but you are a front door.
Yeah, we are a door now. Yeah,
we're a front door. I think that's what's great. Like there are several front doors, and whatever front door people walk into, it's an apartment building full of other doors, and we're all telling people to continue to walk down the hall and continue to go through the next front door. So,
yeah, we got to go up to the elevator, third floor.
Yeah.
Second door on the left. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I want to talk about some of the impact and the startups that are within Forward BIOLABS. You've supported over 40 startups from the data that I gathered that have collectively raised over $360 million, which is awesome. I want to talk about some of the companies or innovations that are coming out of there. I know you wanted to talk about Elephas Bio, if I said that correctly, and what's their story. And tell me more about them and what they're doing.
Elephas Bio, I wanted to highlight them because they're such a good example of a startup that came to Forward BIOLABS, got to work right away. This was during the pandemic, and graduated. They now have somewhere between 100 and 150 employees on the west side of Madison. They've raised over $150 million. And this year, 2026, they're working on launching what they're calling the Elephas Live platform. And that platform is designed to help cancer patients to know if their immunotherapy will be effective or not, or if it's going to have a lot of side effects. And so it's on the cutting edge of this great new field in immunotherapy. And it's a great example of what we like to say is a company that starts here in our nest and goes on to create their own and has impact for patients and also our community. They're hiring people. These people have families. There's economic impact as well. And they're also I consider them to be in this personalized medicine space, which is what our designation is with the EDA, which is another great win for Wisconsin BioHealth. And so they're a really good example. And the other thing with Elephas Bio is Manish Arora had grown up with Kevin Conray at Third Wave and Exact, which is a huge Exact success story. Even with as much talent as he had, he will still say that this was a great starting spot. And so it doesn't matter if you're come from a super successful background like he did, or you're a university professor or someone stepping out of industry to start your own company. All comers are welcome. Like, we're here to help whatever founder. And it's not just in biohealth. We have some clean tech and ag tech companies as well.
The Startup Wisconsin podcast is presented by Valency Fund. You've built a company with real revenue. You've got a growth plan. But traditional bank loans and venture capital don't fit your business stage or model. Sound familiar? That's exactly the gap Valency Fund was built to fill. We provide flexible growth capital designed specifically for Wisconsin companies in tech, advanced manufacturing, and agribusiness that are ready to scale. What makes us different? We're not looking for exits. We offer funding structures like revenue-based financing and redeemable equity, so you can grow with capital that fits your business model. And beyond the money, our team brings decades of experience in startups, including operations, financing, and more. We're a true partner, not just a check. If your business has a solid revenue base, a clear growth plan, and Wisconsin roots, Valency Fund wants to hear from you. Head over to valencyfund.com to learn more and start our conversation today. Valency Fund, innovative capital for lasting growth.
I do want to talk about too, you mentioned, or you just talked about how like there's like a really interesting and strong like ecosystem within Madison for this type of industry and this type of work. Why do you think when companies go through Forward BioLabs, like why do you feel like they stay when there is opportunity for them to maybe go somewhere else like Boston or San Francisco or something like that? Why do you think they end up choosing to stay in Madison after they maybe graduate through your program or through having a lab space there? What is it about Madison specifically that you think keeps people here?
We have a great talent pool in Madison and in Wisconsin. That's very clear. There are always world-class graduates at all levels coming out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison and out of our state schools as well. But that continual renewal of talent, not just at undergrad, but PhD and postdoc as well. And then all of the industry that's here as well. It's like in like some lenses, they talk about it as like a cluster effect. But if you need to hire someone in regulatory or quality, there's a host of companies, big companies, small companies, and that's a sign of a really good, robust ecosystem when you know that you can hire, because that you don't find that everywhere. I do know that there are companies that have established I've heard stories, and when you make a big investment in a new plant or a new site and they can't hire, that's a problem. And thankfully, I have yet to hear that that's an issue in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I was kind of curious around like, if there's velocity of growth of startups, and is the talent that's coming out of the universities in Wisconsin enough like to cover like the opportunities that are coming out? And maybe another question around that is like, do you feel like a lot of the startups, the talent that they're looking for, do they usually find some of these folks like still wrapping up like maybe their PhD or something like that, where they're like in a program still, and then they end up like kind of interning and then end up in a role? Like kind of what is it like that talent pipeline kind of like right now?
Yeah, when it comes to, that is a frequent path, is that a PhD or postdoc student will be working on a technology. The company will be founded as they're finishing their PhD or postdoc or during that process. And so then that company kind of gets launched right out of the university with the person who was integral in inventing that technology. And that's it's a common path, especially for folks out of the graduate degrees at UW. What I was thinking about is the other talent. We have all the scientific talent, but I would say that's not to say we don't have incoming talent, because plenty of companies hire specialists from other parts of the country. And that's also beneficial to our ecosystem, because if you can pull in a world-class COO from Boston who's done this for 40 years to help your company, that's a great win too. And so we have scientific talent, we have industry talent, but I think it's also great when people pull in others from outside for different leadership positions or advisors and certainly funding.
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. I want to talk about your pilot that you're kind of like testing out in Milwaukee. You just made this announcement with a new program called ICP. Maybe talk about what is ICP, what's driving that growth, why are you piloting in Milwaukee, and what does that look like?
So both of those, the three efforts that we have around our expanded programs and footprints, are the basis of our project with the Wisconsin Biohealth Tech Hub. And so this is state funded, and it's alongside the EDA funding for the Tech Hub projects. And I want to clarify that because it's part of this building Wisconsin as a biohealth leader nationally and internationally, and a recognition of what already exists here. But the ICP program, it's Innovation to Commercialization Pipeline, that is non-dilutive funding for companies. They apply for what milestone are they trying to hit, and how could a bit of funding help them kind of get across the finish line and through their next fundraise. Companies have applied for and are actively working on things like IND enabling studies that they need for FDA approval. Others have a product and they're working on getting it out on the market. And so they've applied for, I need to get to these scientific conferences so that I can be presenting, or sales partners to get their product out on the market and into the hands of customers. So it's really interesting to see, and as we expected, a broad set of milestones that they're trying to hit, kind of based on where they're at. But we ran one round of it in 2025, and we're going to look for an announcement in the next month or about the second round. And then the other pieces of that Tech Hub funding are piloting a Milwaukee presence. So soon after Forward BIOLABS started, stakeholders in the Milwaukee region had been reaching out. How can you help in Milwaukee? And so this is that effort of working with the stakeholders and the startups there just to do some good in whatever form that takes beyond the pilot remains to be seen.
Yeah.
And then we're expanding in University Research Park, our footprint here. So that's really exciting as well.
Yeah. I'm curious, what is unique about what's going on in Milwaukee, or maybe what excites you about like what is happening in Milwaukee specifically through the kind of the program and the efforts that you're seeing so far?
Yeah. I just was there all day yesterday with the director. We have boots on the ground, Shivam Bharti. We were at Medical College of Wisconsin, Versity, University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. What a day. There is a lot going on in Milwaukee, and kudos to all of those stakeholders who have put together really fantastic core resources and bits and pieces of things that help startups in not the same format, but that is working to accomplish the same goals that we're doing in Madison. So it was really wonderful to see all of that, because it's just different when you get like a full, really detailed tour. And I had seen some spaces, but I hadn't seen these yesterday. So there's a lot of enthusiasm, and there's a lot of just things being put together. And that's really exciting to see in Milwaukee.
Awesome. I want to talk about the kind of ecosystem and culture of Forward BIOLABS and just maybe Madison in general. You've described it as a nurturing environment, or like a home for founders who don't quite fit in academia or in a corporate setting. So what does that look like in practice? What do people experience when they're part of Forward BIOLABS?
What I mean when we talk about you don't quite fit in academia or industry is there's this kind of in-betweeny phase where it's not a research project anymore. And so you don't want to get sucked back into the research in the PI's lab, but you're not a Promega or an Aldevron or an Exact Sciences. You're not really big yet. And so what we provide is a like-minded place where you're going to run into other people who are building their companies, who are real early on. And there's just a deep sense of camaraderie when you can come here and chat with people on the same path with these long product development timelines and like similar, maybe they're all working on different things, but just that commonality of this is a long thing, this is a long time, this is a long process I'm endeavoring on here. With some, like they all have licensing things or their IP and big fundraisers, and there's just commonality in that makes for a fun collegial environment. And of course we encourage that and we make introductions. And what people tell me and what people tell our team is they like that we're always here. We're always here for questions, whether it's a good day or a bad day in the lab, or it's a good day or a bad day out fundraising, and that they can talk to each other too and get to know each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever, when people are like applying to be a part of it, is there any sense of culture fit? Like, I'm not going to say personality fit, but is that something you take to heart when, people are applying to be part of the program? Because obviously you don't want to like toxic founders like being there and doing things like that. And I don't know how common it is within that space because like this, everything's just very, research driven and there's just longer cycles of things. But I'm just curious if that's something that you think through is like, oh, is this person like going to be have a positive impact like on other members? Or is that not something to really consider, I guess? Yeah.
Yeah, the screening we do is around safety, science, and cultural fit. And so is this, like when it comes to the lab, what's the work to be done and can it safely be done alongside others? Or what do we have to put in place to make sure that everybody is safe? And so that's always the very, very first and foremost screen. And it isn't very often that things aren't a good fit. And we've got a really good feel for that. We also have advisors in specific areas that we go to when we do have questions who are experts in their fields as a double check. And they've been really wonderful. Seth Tapkin and Dave Rosema are two of our great advisors. And as far as people fit, we don't really screen for personality because there are some people who they're in the lab, they're quiet, they're doing their work, and they go home. Others are super social and they're at all of our socials and events that we do. It just kind of, some people, like sometimes I walk in the morning and there's a few people having coffee in the front, talking about their days. It just kind of takes, it's all kind of all comers. We do on the company level, they do have to be willing to work in a co-working environment, but they're sort of self-selecting into that when they contact us. And so there's sort of and if there is something, then what we find in the screening process is it's not a good fit. But those that do come are, it works really well. And for all different kinds of science too, that uses similar equipment, but for different purposes.
Awesome. Well, what else are you looking forward to this year other than the pilot that's running in Milwaukee? Is there anything else that you're, whether it's things that members are working on or things that you and your team are working on and excited to share? I know that you might not be able to share everything, but just curious what's on your mind for 2026.
2026. There's a few things that we're really excited about. We're really excited about the second round of ICP. This program is the first of its kind in the state, and we really are grateful for that opportunity. This program, it's being done in conjunction with Forward Wisconsin and Lisa Johnson and her team, and it's just a really great opportunity for entrepreneurs. And that program is biohealth specific. And so we're looking forward to that. We just started working with entrepreneurs in the Milwaukee area. And so we're excited to dig in, and Shivam's been having several conversations with those founders. And so that's fun to see that taking shape and to be working with the companies in a way that's impactful for them. And here in Madison, both Aaron Oliver and I are really excited for the expansion. That what's really fun is we've been in the same building for about 8 years, and there's some really fun opportunities on the horizon for when we move that will benefit a wider array of startups. And it's a move, and it's also a long-term opportunity to build value for startups here in Wisconsin.
Yeah. What you said, more startups, like what does that look like? I know you say you were talking about some of the ag tech startups and food tech.
Yep.
Is it to lean more into those spaces, or is it other markets? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah. We're excited that in the next footprint, we'll have more space for shared equipment. And so by getting more shared equipment, whatever startups in whatever industry they happen to be in can utilize that equipment. But there's some things that have been in our wish list for a while that we're really excited to bring in that will naturally service a broader set of companies. And we'll be in a building where there already are another set of startups that it's called the MG Innovation Center. And so it's got small suites, and we'll be able to work with some of those companies as they want or need. And so it's, we're really excited about it. URP is still a really great partner, and it'll be kind of the next phase of our partnership.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on the planning, the progress, all that kind of stuff. It's incredible. And I just also want to say thank you for doing what you're doing, your entire team for doing what they're doing, and any of the partners that are involved with helping all this become possible. Because like you said, it's like all these founders would be trying to figure it out on their own if it wasn't for you taking the chance and saying, hey, I'm going to pilot this program in Madison and see if it has legs and see what we can do here. And here we are. You said, 8 years later.
I'll be honest. When I look back, I had my kids I had like a 1, 4, and 6-year-old at the time. It just, when I look back, it was a little crazy, but I just felt so convinced that if it could get off the ground, it would be really impactful. And so hopefully we're just at the start of that.
Yeah. So if a scientist or a founder is listening and thinking, hey, this might be for me, what should they know and how do they get in touch?
The best way is through the website to submit an inquiry. It hits the whole team, and so we can get back to you. We try within 24, 48 hours and have a conversation. And having a conversation is our MO. What are you looking for? Where are you in your process? And how can we help, or how can we connect you with others that can help? And so it's never really too late or too early. We're happy to chat with whoever, even if you're just kind of looking for what should I be considering.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks again for your time, and best of luck on everything, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for joining us on the Startup Wisconsin podcast. Want to support the show? Don't forget to subscribe and get updates. If you're feeling generous, you can share, rate, and review our podcast to help others find us. All right, folks, until next time, let's keep moving Wisconsin forward.